Thank you for everything.
The stagecoach door swung open, and Nathaniel Reed's breath caught, not at the woman's beauty, but at the purple bruise spreading across her cheekbone like spilled ink. Her trembling hands clutched a carpet bag, as though it contained her entire life. Behind her, the driver shoved a crumpled note into Nathaniel's palm. She comes in need of safety more than marriage.
It's all right.
8 years of loneliness had prepared him for a wife. Nothing had prepared him for this. Before we begin,
everything.
please subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end of this story. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. Now let's begin. Nathaniel Reed held the letter until the paper went soft between his fingers. Miss Zoe Caldwell of Boston, Massachusetts, age 24, has accepted your proposal. She will arrive September 15th via afternoon coach. He'd read it 50 times in 3 weeks. Maybe more. Each time his chest did something strange, tightened and expanded at once, like his heart couldn't decide between hope and terror. 42 years old, 8 years alone. And now this. "You're being a fool," he told Buck his hound. Buck thumped his tail and didn't argue. The morning she was supposed to arrive, Nathaniel woke at 4 and couldn't fall back asleep. He shaved, cut himself twice, heated water, and scrubbed his hands until they looked less like he wrestled cattle for a living. Put on the blue shirt Mary had made him, then took it off because wearing it felt like a betrayal, then put it back on because he had nothing else clean. The cabin. Jesus, the cabin. He swept the floor, beat the rag rug against the porch rail, scrubbed the table until his arms ached. Baked bread that came out half-burned and lopsided. Picked wildflowers, threw them out, picked more. Arranged them in a jar on the table and stood back trying to see the cabin through a stranger's eyes. One room, stone fireplace, bed in the corner, shelves, rocking chair. That was it. That was all he had to offer. "God help me," he muttered. By noon, he'd worn a path in the floorboards from pacing. At 2 o'clock, he rode into Silverdale and tied his mare outside the stage depot. Other men waited: Tim Brennan, Carl Schmidt, Samuel Cross. All of them widowers. All of them standing there with their hats in their hands, looking like they'd forgotten how to breathe. Nobody spoke. What was there to say? The stagecoach was late. Nathaniel watched the sun crawl across the sky and felt sweat run down his spine despite the cool September air. His collar was too tight. His boots hurt. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been this terrified, and he'd once been charged by a wounded grizzly. Coach coming. 6 horses dust rattling wheels. The driver hauled on the reins and the stage lurched to a stop. The door opened. 3 women stepped down into the Montana afternoon, and Nathaniel's entire future hung on which one belonged to him. The first was round-faced, middle-aged, smiling. She spotted Carl Schmidt and said his name like a question. Carl stepped forward grinning, and they walked away already talking. The second was young blonde laughing at something. Tim Brennan moved toward her, and she said his name, and just like that, Tim's loneliness was over. And then Nathaniel saw her, small. Dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Gray dress, travel-worn, patched. She held a carpet bag with both hands like someone might rip it away from her. And across her cheekbone, spreading from eye to jaw, was a bruise so dark it looked black. Their eyes met, brown eyes, enormous, wary, and Nathaniel felt something crack open in his chest. "Miss Caldwell?" She flinched. "I'm Nathaniel Reed." He kept his voice soft, the way he'd gentle a spooked horse. "I wrote to the agency. I know who you are." Her voice was Boston-educated, barely above a whisper, and it trembled. The driver cleared his throat, held out a folded paper. "Mr. Reed, from Mrs. Pritchard." Nathaniel took it, unfolded it. "Mr. Reed, Miss Caldwell has suffered greatly. She comes to you in need of safety more than marriage. Please be gentle. She has seen the worst of men. Show her there are better ones. H.P." He looked up. Zoe was watching him with the expression of someone waiting for a blow. Nathaniel folded the note, put it in his pocket, and said the only thing that mattered. "You're safe now. I promise you that. You're not alone now." She stared at him. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. She nodded once sharp, like she was afraid to believe him. They rode back in silence. Zoe sat rigid on Mary's mare carpet bag, clutched tight, eyes forward. Nathaniel searched for words that wouldn't sound empty. "The ranch is small," he finally said. 300 acres. I run cattle, some horses. The cabin's not much, but it's sound. Creek nearby. Chicken coop. Nothing. I'll sleep in the barn tonight. You'll have the cabin to yourself. There's a bolt on the door. Still nothing. Miss Caldwell. Zoe. So quiet, he almost missed it. My name is Zoe. Zoe. The name felt fragile. Whatever happened before, it won't happen here. You have my word. She turned her head, looked at him with those wounded eyes. Men's words don't mean much. And Nathaniel had no answer because she was right. The cabin stood in its clearing smoke curling from the banked fire. Nathaniel helped Zoe down, careful, barely touching, and she stood there looking at his home like it was a cage. "Would you like to see inside?" She nodded. He opened the door, stepped back. She entered slowly, taking it in bed. Table, fireplace, shelves. Rug, rocking chair. "It's clean," she said, surprised. "I tried." She set down her carpet bag and turned to face him. In the better light, he saw her clearly. Too thin. Shadows under her eyes. Tightness around her mouth that spoke of swallowed pain. The bruise was days old, fading from black to sickly yellow-green at the edges. "Did someone hit you?" She stiffened. "It doesn't matter now. It matters to me." Long silence. She was weighing something, deciding something. "My uncle. Before I left Boston." White-hot rage flooded Nathaniel's chest. He clenched his fists to stop his hands from shaking. Often enough." Her voice went flat, matter-of-fact, and that was worse than tears. "He said I was ungrateful. Said he'd fed me, clothed me since my parents died. Said I owed him. He found a man who wanted to marry me. 60 years old, buried 3 wives already. My uncle sold me to him for $200. Nathaniel felt sick. "I ran," Zoe continued. "Took the money I'd saved from sewing. Went to the Western Bride Agency. Mrs. Pritchard said she could send me west where my uncle couldn't follow. Said there were good men out here. Said I could start over." "You can. You will." She looked at him with something like pity. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done." "I don't need to know. Whatever it was survival. Survival isn't something to be ashamed of." Tears spilled over. She wiped them away, angry. "I'm sorry. I don't usually..." "Don't apologize. Not for tears. Not for anything." She nodded, still crying. "I'll leave you to rest," Nathaniel said. "There's bread on the table. Ham in the larder. Help yourself. I'll be in the barn if you need me." "Mr. Reed." "Nathaniel." "Nathaniel." She tested the name. "Why are you being kind to me?" The question hit him like a fist. "Because you deserve kindness. And because I remember what it feels like to be alone." He left before she could respond, stood in the yard, staring at the mountains, trying to breathe past the fury burning in his chest. Somewhere in Boston, there was a man who'd beaten a woman and tried to sell her like livestock. Somewhere in Boston, there was another man who'd paid for her. And here was Nathaniel Reed, trying to figure out how to help someone who'd been hurt so badly she didn't believe in kindness anymore. He saddled his horse and rode hard into the hills until the rage burned out, leaving only ache. When he returned, the cabin was dark except for firelight through the window. He made himself a bed in the hayloft and lay there staring at the rafters, listening to the night crickets, an owl, a distant coyote. "Mary," he whispered, "if you're up there, help me do this right." The barn was silent. Morning came cold. Nathaniel woke stiff, washed his face in the creek, came back to find smoke rising from the chimney. He knocked. "Come in." He opened the door and stopped. The cabin was transformed. Floor swept spotless. Dishes washed stacked neatly. Bed made with military precision. And Zoe at the stove cooking eggs and bacon hair neatly braided, wearing Mary's old apron over her gray dress. "Good morning." Her voice was careful, like she was trying very hard to do this correctly. "Morning. You didn't have to." "I wanted to." She turned determination in her eyes. "You've given me a home. The least I can do is earn my keep." "You don't have to earn anything. You're not a servant." "Then what am I?" The question was blunt honest. Nathaniel didn't have an easy answer. "You're someone who needed a safe place. I have a safe place, that's all." She studied him, then nodded slowly. "Breakfast is ready." They sat across from each other, eating in awkward silence. The food was good, better than anything he'd cooked in 8 years. "This is excellent," he said. "My mother taught me. Before the fever took her and my father, I was 12. My uncle took me in, but he—" She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter now." "It does matter. What happened to you matters." She looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. A crack in the wall. Why do you care?" "Because someone should have cared a long time ago and they didn't. I can't fix that, but I can try to do better now." Her eyes filled again. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be someone's wife. I don't know how to trust." "Then we'll figure it out together. We'll take our time. No rush, no expectations. You're safe here, Zoe. That's all that matters." She nodded, wiping her eyes, and for the first time since the stagecoach, she almost smiled. The days settled into careful rhythm. Zoe kept the cabin immaculate, cooked meals that made Nathaniel look forward to eating, tended the garden with fierce concentration. Nathaniel worked the ranch and tried to give her space without abandoning her. They talked at meals. Small pieces of story. Nathaniel told her about Mary, about the son who never drew breath, about the years of silence after. "I thought I'd die alone," he admitted one evening. "Thought that was what I deserved for not being able to save them." "That's not how it works," Zoe said quietly. "Death isn't punishment. It just is. Your parents, scarlet fever, 3 days. I watched them burn up from the inside." Her voice went distant. "My uncle came to the funeral. Told me I was lucky he was willing to take me in. That no one else would want a burden like me." "You're not a burden." "He made sure I believed I was. That's how he kept me." She looked at Nathaniel. "Fear is easier than chains." "You're not afraid anymore." "I'm terrified every day." She said it simply, like stating a fact. "But I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions." Nathaniel nodded. He understood that. Zoe told him about Boston, about learning to make herself small and quiet and invisible in her uncle's house. "I thought if I was good enough, useful enough, he'd stop being angry. But he was always angry. Nothing I did was ever enough." "That wasn't about you. That was about his cruelty." "I know that now." But knowing and believing are different things. 1 week after she'd arrived, Nathaniel came in from the barn and found her at the table staring at nothing, hands clenched in her lap, face pale. "Zoe." She looked up, and her eyes were wrong, distant, panicked. "What happened?" "I broke it." Her voice was barely audible. She pointed to the floor. A plate, Mary's good china plate, shattered into a dozen pieces. "I was washing dishes, and it slipped, and I broke it. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'll pay for it. Zoe. Nathaniel crossed the room slowly, carefully. "It's just a plate." "No." She was shaking now. "No, it's not just a plate. It was your wife's. It mattered. And I broke it, like I break everything I touch, and now you'll—" "Now I'll what?" He kept his voice gentle. "Send me back. Tell me to leave. Hit me. Something. You'll do something because that's what happens when I mess up. That's what always... Zoe, look at me. She did, and her eyes were wild. It's a plate. That's all. Mary's been gone 8 years. She wouldn't care about a plate. I don't care about a plate. You know what I care about. She shook her head. You, standing there thinking I'm going to hurt you over broken china. That's what I care about. That's what makes me want to ride to Boston and find your uncle and make him understand what he did to you. Don't. Her voice broke. Don't go. Please don't leave me alone. And Nathaniel understood then. It wasn't about the plate. It was about abandonment. It was about every time someone had left her, or hurt her, or made her feel worthless. I'm not going anywhere, he said. I'm right here, and you can break every plate in this cabin if you need to, and I'll still be right here. She started crying, really crying, and Nathaniel took a chance. He opened his arms. May I? She hesitated, then nodded. He pulled her gently against his chest and held her while she sobbed. 8 years of his grief and 24 years of hers, mixing together in the quiet cabin. You're not alone now, he murmured. I meant that. You're not alone. 3 weeks after Zoe arrived, Nathaniel woke in the barn to Buck growling low in his throat. Someone was outside. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the barn door, every sense alert. Dawn was just breaking, painting everything gray and uncertain. A figure stood by the cabin, man-shaped, watching. Nathaniel stepped out. Can I help you? The figure turned, and Nathaniel saw a stranger, middle-aged, well-dressed Eastern suit and hat, completely wrong for Montana territory. I'm looking for someone, the man said. His voice was educated cold. A young woman, dark hair, about this tall. He gestured. She ran away from Boston 3 weeks ago. I have reason to believe she came west. Nathaniel's blood went cold. Don't know anyone like that. Are you sure there's a reward? $500 for information leading to her return. She's unwell, needs to be brought back to her family for her own safety. I said I don't know anyone like that. The man studied him. You're lying. I can see it. What she told you, that she's in danger, that someone hurt her. She's a liar. She's always been a liar. Ungrateful, manipulative, dangerous even. Nathaniel raised the rifle, not pointing it, just raising it. Time for you to leave. I'm her uncle. I have a legal right. You have 5 seconds to get off my property. Then I stop counting and start shooting. The man's face went hard. This isn't over. She belongs to me. I will find her. He turned and walked back to his horse, mounted, and rode away. Nathaniel stood there, rifle in hand, watching until the man disappeared. Then he walked to the cabin and knocked. Zoe, it's me. The door opened. She stood there in her nightdress, her face white. You heard? She nodded. How long were you listening? The whole time. Her voice was shaking. He found me. He actually found me. How did he? It doesn't matter. He's gone. He'll come back. You heard him. He won't stop. He never stops. She was spiraling into panic. I have to leave. I have to go somewhere else, somewhere he won't. You're not going anywhere. Nathaniel, you don't understand. He'll bring the sheriff. He'll say I'm his property, that I'm mentally unfit, that he has a legal right to take me back. And the law will side with him because the law always sides with men like him, and you'll get hurt trying to protect me. And I can't. I can't let that happen. Nathaniel stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Listen to me. I meant what I said. You're under my protection. That means something out here. That means if he tries to take you, he goes through me first. And I promise you, Zoe, I promise you on Mary's grave and my son's memory, no one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go. Why? Tears were streaming down her face. Why would you risk yourself for me? You barely know me. I'm nothing to you. You're not nothing. The words came out fierce, more intense than he meant them. You matter. Your safety matters. Your life matters. And I'll be damned if I let some bastard who beat you and sold you come here and take you back to that." She was staring at him, and something in her expression changed. "If we were married," she said slowly, "legally married, he couldn't claim me. He couldn't take me back. The law would recognize you as my husband, and his claim would be void." Nathaniel's heart hammered. "Zoe, I'm not asking because I'm afraid." She stepped closer. "I'm asking because these 3 weeks I've felt safer than I've felt in 12 years. Because you've shown me what kindness looks like. Because when I wake up in the morning I don't feel dread anymore. I feel like maybe I deserve to be alive." "You do deserve it. Then marry me. Not because you have to. Not because you feel sorry for me. But because—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Because I want to choose this. I want to choose you. I want to choose a life where I'm not afraid anymore." Nathaniel looked at her, this small, fierce woman who'd survived hell and was still standing still fighting, still brave enough to ask for what she wanted. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He nodded slowly. "Then yes, if that's what you want. If you're choosing this freely, then yes." She smiled, really smiled for the first time since she'd arrived, and Nathaniel felt something settle in his chest, something that felt almost like hope. "Tomorrow," he said. "We'll ride into town tomorrow and talk to Pastor Morris. We'll do this right." "Tomorrow," she agreed. That night, Nathaniel lay in the barn and thought about Mary, about the life they'd had and lost, about the years of silence that had followed. "I hope you understand," he whispered to the darkness. "I'm not trying to replace you. I'm trying to live again. And she needs someone to protect her. She needs—" He stopped, realized what he was saying. "She needs me. And maybe I need her too." Morning came bright and clear. They rode into Silverdale together, Zoe sitting straighter in the saddle than she had 3 weeks ago, her chin up, her eyes alert. Pastor Morris was an old man with kind eyes and gnarled hands. He listened to their story, the parts they told him anyway, and nodded slowly. "You understand what marriage means?" he asked Zoe. "You're choosing this freely. No one's forcing you." "I'm choosing it," she said. "I'm choosing him." "Then I'll marry you. But not today. You'll wait 3 days. That's my rule. 3 days to make sure you're certain. If you come back in 3 days, I'll know you mean it." They agreed. Those 3 days were strange. They moved around each other carefully, both aware that something fundamental was shifting between them. Nathaniel caught himself watching Zoe as she worked in the garden, noticing the way the afternoon light caught in her dark hair, the way she hummed sometimes when she thought he couldn't hear. And Zoe started to relax, started to smile more, started to sit closer to him at meals, to ask him questions about the ranch, to share her own dreams. "I always wanted to learn to ride properly," she admitted one evening. "Not just sitting on a horse, really riding." "I'll teach you," Nathaniel said. "And I want a bigger garden, with flowers, not just vegetables, roses maybe, and lavender. We can do that. And someday—" She stopped, looked at him shyly. "Someday, if things work out, maybe children, a family." Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. "I'd like that." On the 3rd day they rode back to Silverdale. Pastor Morris married them in his small church with no flowers, no crowd, no ceremony. Just 2 people choosing each other in the sight of God. When the pastor said, "Husband and wife," Zoe looked at Nathaniel and whispered, "I finally know what home feels like." They rode back to the ranch as the sun was setting, painting the mountains gold and red. When they reached the cabin, Nathaniel helped Zoe down from her horse, and this time she didn't flinch from his touch. "Are you afraid?" he asked quietly. "No." She looked up at him. "Not anymore, not with you." He kissed her, then gentle, careful, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she leaned into him, her hands coming up to rest against his chest, and Nathaniel felt 8 years of loneliness finally begin to ease. That night they lay together in the bed that had been his alone for so long, and Zoe curled against his side like she belonged there. Like she'd always belonged there. "Thank you," she whispered in the darkness. "For what?" "For seeing me. For not looking away when it would have been easier. For making me believe I deserved kindness." Nathaniel pulled her closer. "You're not alone now. Not ever again." She fell asleep in his arms, breathing steady and peaceful, and Nathaniel stayed awake for a long time, listening to her breathe, feeling grateful and terrified and hopeful all at once. Outside, the Montana night was vast and cold, but inside the cabin there was warmth, there was safety, there was the beginning of something neither of them had expected to find. Love. Not the desperate drowning kind, not the fairy tale kind, but the real kind. The kind built on trust and time, and choosing each other every single day. The kind that could survive anything, even the ghosts of Boston. Winter came early that year. The first snow fell 2 weeks after the wedding, light and dry, dusting the mountains white. Zoe stood at the cabin window watching it fall, her hand resting on the glass, and Nathaniel came up behind her. "You cold?" "No." She leaned back against him, and he wrapped his arms around her waist. "I was just thinking, this is the first winter I'm not afraid of." He kissed the top of her head. Good. They'd settled into being married easier than Nathaniel had expected. Zoe still woke sometimes in the night, gasping from nightmares, but she'd learned to reach for him in the dark, and he'd learned to hold her without asking questions until she was ready to talk. They worked side by side during the day, her in the cabin, and gardened him with the cattle and horses, and came together at meals with stories about their separate hours. "The brown hen stopped laying," Zoe said one evening over stew. "She's old, probably done for the season. Should we—" She hesitated. "Should we cull her?" Nathaniel looked at his wife, this Boston girl, who'd learned ranch life faster than he'd thought possible, and felt a surge of affection so strong it almost hurt. "Not yet. She's earned her rest. We'll keep her through winter, see if she starts up again in spring." Zoe smiled. "You're soft. You're the one who named all the chickens." "That's different. That's organizational. You called the rooster Gerald." "He looks like a Gerald." Nathaniel laughed, and Zoe's smile widened, and for a moment, everything was perfect. Then Buck started barking. Nathaniel was on his feet, instantly, rifle in hand. "Stay inside. Lock the door." "Nathaniel." "Lock it." He stepped out onto the porch. The sun was setting, turning everything orange and gold, and there were 3 riders coming up the path from the road. 3 men moving slow and deliberate, and Nathaniel recognized the one in front. Zoe's uncle. Behind him rode 2 others. One was Sheriff Blackwood from Silverdale, the other a stranger in a black suit who looked like a lawyer or an undertaker, or both. Nathaniel raised the rifle, not pointing it, just letting them see it. They stopped 20 feet from the cabin. "Mr. Reed." Sheriff Blackwood spoke first. He was a decent man, fair, but he looked uncomfortable. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About the woman you're harboring." Zoe's uncle spoke up, his voice cold and clipped. "My niece, Zoe Caldwell. She's mentally unfit, prone to hysteria and delusions. She ran away from my care 3 months ago, and I've come to take her home." "She is home," Nathaniel said. "She's a danger to herself and others. I have legal documentation." The uncle gestured to the man in the black suit. "Mr. Pemberton here is a lawyer from Boston. He has papers signed by a doctor attesting to her condition. Papers that give me legal guardianship and the right to retrieve her by any means necessary." Nathaniel's grip tightened on the rifle. "Those papers mean nothing here." "Actually," Pemberton said, pulling a document from his coat, "they mean everything. Montana Territory recognizes the legal authority of guardianship papers issued in Massachusetts. If Miss Caldwell is deemed mentally unfit, her uncle has the right to take her into his custody for treatment. She's not Miss Caldwell anymore, Nathaniel said. She's Mrs. Reed, my wife. And your papers don't mean a damn thing. Silence. The uncle's face went dark red. You married her. 3 weeks ago, Pastor Morris in Silverdale performed the ceremony. It's legal and recorded. Under false pretenses, the uncle snapped. She's not capable of consent. Any marriage entered into by someone of unsound mind is invalid. She's perfectly sound. Then why did she run? The uncle's voice rose. Why did she flee in the middle of the night like a thief? Why did she lie to you about who she is? She didn't lie. She escaped. From you. I fed her, clothed her, gave her a home for 12 years after her parents died. And this is how she repays me, by spreading lies and running to the first man who'll believe her sob story. Nathaniel took a step forward. You beat her. I disciplined her when necessary. She was wild, ungrateful, needed a firm hand. You sold her. The uncle's mouth snapped shut. $200, Nathaniel continued. To a man 3 times her age who'd already buried 3 wives. You sold your own blood like she was livestock. That's a lie. She told you that? That's exactly the kind of delusion I'm talking about. She's sick, Mr. Reed. She needs help. Medical help. And I'm the only family she has. No. The cabin door opened behind Nathaniel, and Zoe stepped out. She was pale, but steady, her chin up, her hands clasped in front of her. No. You're not my family. You stopped being my family the first time you hit me. Zoe. The uncle's voice changed, went soft and poisonous. Sweet girl. You're confused. You're not well. Come home with me, and we'll get you the help you need. I am home. This isn't your home. This is a stranger's house in the middle of nowhere. You don't belong here. I belong here more than I ever belonged with you. The uncle's expression hardened. Sheriff, are you going to enforce the law or not? Sheriff Blackwood shifted in his saddle. He looked at Nathaniel, at Zoe, at the papers in Pemberton's hand. Mr. Reed, is it true you married Miss Caldwell? Mrs. Reed, and yes. When? November 3rd. Pastor Morris can confirm it. And was she? Blackwood hesitated. Was she of sound mind when she agreed to marry you? More sound than most people I know. Sheriff, this is absurd. The uncle's voice was sharp. She's clearly been coerced. Look at her, terrified, clinging to this man, who probably promised her safety in exchange for God knows what. This is exactly the kind of situation her mental condition makes her vulnerable to. I wasn't coerced, Zoe said. Her voice was stronger now. I chose to marry Nathaniel. I chose to stay here. And I'm not going back with you. Not ever. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. I'm a married woman. My husband is my legal guardian now, not you. That's actually correct, Sheriff Blackwood said slowly. If she's married, your guardianship papers don't apply. Her husband has legal authority. Then the marriage is invalid. The uncle was nearly shouting now. She's mentally unfit, which means she couldn't legally consent. The marriage should be annulled, and she should be returned to my custody. On whose authority? Nathaniel asked. On the authority of the state of Massachusetts and the medical professionals who examined her. No medical professional examined her. You paid some doctor to sign papers saying she was crazy, so you could control her. That's slander. It's the truth. Zoe's voice cut through. Dr. Morrison never met me. He was my uncle's friend. He signed whatever my uncle asked him to sign. There was no examination, no evaluation, just papers that gave my uncle the right to lock me up if I didn't obey him. You see, the uncle gestured wildly. You see how she is paranoid, delusional, making accusations. Show me your arms, Nathaniel said to Zoe. She understood immediately. She unbuttoned her sleeves and rolled them up, revealing her forearms. Even in the fading light, the scars were visible. Old bruises, faded yellow, and newer marks, red and fresh. "From what?" Nathaniel asked quietly. "From the last time I tried to leave. He locked me in my room for 3 days. No food, no water. When I finally got out, I was so weak I could barely stand." The uncle's face went white. "That's not she's lying." "Sheriff." Nathaniel's voice was hard. "You see those marks?" Blackwood nodded slowly. "You see that bruise on her face, the one that was black when she arrived here 6 weeks ago?" Another nod. "That's not mental illness. That's abuse. And if you try to take her back to the man who did that, I will fight you. All 3 of you. And I won't stop fighting until one of us is dead." Long silence. Sheriff Blackwood looked at the uncle at Pemberton, at the papers, at Zoe's scars. Then he looked at Nathaniel. "Mr. Reed, lower your rifle." Nathaniel didn't move. "Lower it, please." Slowly, Nathaniel lowered the rifle. Blackwood turned to the uncle. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave." "What, Sheriff? You can't be serious." "I'm very serious. Mrs. Reed is a married woman living on her husband's property. She's shown evidence of prior abuse. And unless you have a court order from a Montana judge saying otherwise, she stays here. This is outrageous. I have legal papers from Massachusetts, which don't supersede Montana law or a legal marriage. Now you can ride back to Boston and file whatever legal challenges you want. But right now, tonight, you're leaving." The uncle's face twisted with rage. "She's my property. She's a human being," Blackwood said flatly. "And she's not going anywhere. Mr. Pemberton, I suggest you advise your client before he says something that gets him arrested." Pemberton put a hand on the uncle's arm. "We should go. We'll file an appeal through proper channels. I'm not leaving without her." "Yes, you are." Blackwood's hand moved to his sidearm. "One way or another, you're leaving. The question is whether you're riding or being dragged." The uncle stared at Zoe with naked hatred. "This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't over. I will get you back. I will make you pay for this embarrassment. You ungrateful little—" "That's enough." Nathaniel raised the rifle again. "Get off my property. Now." For a moment, Nathaniel thought the uncle would charge. His face was purple. His fists clenched, his whole body trembling with rage. But Pemberton pulled him back, whispered something sharp, and finally the uncle wheeled his horse around and rode away, Pemberton following. Sheriff Blackwood stayed. "Mr. Reed, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer." "All right. Did you marry her just to protect her from her uncle?" Nathaniel looked at Zoe. She was watching him, her eyes enormous in her pale face. "No," he said. "I married her because she asked me to, because she wanted a life where she wasn't afraid, and because—" He stopped, then said it anyway. "Because I wanted that too." Blackwood nodded slowly. "Mrs. Reed, are you here of your own free will?" "Yes." "Has your husband hurt you or threatened you in any way?" "No. Never." "Do you want to leave with your uncle?" "God, no." "Then as far as I'm concerned, this matter is settled." Blackwood tipped his hat. "But I'll warn you, that man isn't going to give up easy. He's angry and he's humiliated. That's a dangerous combination. You watch yourselves." "We will," Nathaniel said. After Blackwood rode away, Nathaniel and Zoe stood in the yard as darkness fell around them. Buck padded over and leaned against Nathaniel's leg. "He'll come back," Zoe said quietly. "You know he will. Let him. Next time I won't wait for the sheriff." "Nathaniel, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm choosing." He turned to face her. "You think I'm going to let some bastard take you back to that? After everything you've been through, after—" He stopped, shook his head. "No, that's not happening." "But what if he brings more men? What if he—" "Then I'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. Together." She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. "I'm so tired of being afraid." "I know. I'm so tired of running." "Then stop running. Stay here. With me, and we'll face whatever comes." She nodded, wiping her eyes. Together. Together. They went inside, and Nathaniel locked the door, something he'd never done in 8 years of living here, and built up the fire while Zoe made tea. They sat together on the floor in front of the fireplace, not talking, just being, and slowly the tension began to ease. "Can I ask you something?" Zoe said after a long silence. "Anything." "What you said to the sheriff, about wanting a life where you weren't afraid. What did you mean?" Nathaniel stared into the fire. "After Mary died, I was afraid of everything. Afraid of caring about someone and losing them. Afraid of being happy because happiness could be taken away. Afraid of living, I guess. I just existed. Went through the motions. And then you showed up terrified and bruised and barely holding together, and somehow—" He looked at her. "Somehow taking care of you made me remember how to care about myself. Does that make sense?" "Yes." She leaned against his shoulder. "You saved me, you know. Not just from my uncle. From myself. From believing I deserved what he did to me. You never deserved that. I know that now. Because of you." They sat there until the fire burned low, then went to bed and held each other in the dark, listening to the wind outside and the solid walls around them. And for that night at least, everything was safe. But safety is fragile. 3 days later, Nathaniel rode into Silverdale for supplies and came back to find the cabin door open. His heart stopped. "Zoe!" He was off his horse before it stopped moving, rifle in hand, running toward the cabin. Buck was barking frantic, and Nathaniel burst through the door, ready for anything, and found Zoe on the floor, pale and shaking, but alive. "What happened?" "He was here." Her voice was barely audible. "My uncle. He came while you were gone." Rage and terror flooded Nathaniel's system in equal measure. "Did he hurt you?" "No. He stood in the doorway and told me he was going to win. That he'd file papers with the territorial court. That he'd prove I was insane and you'd coerced me. That he'd take everything from me, my freedom, my marriage, my life, and there was nothing I could do to stop him." Nathaniel knelt beside her, pulled her into his arms. She was trembling violently. "Then what happened?" "I told him to leave. He laughed. Said I couldn't make him. Said this was his property now because I was his property. And then—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Then I picked up the cast-iron skillet and told him if he didn't leave, I'd kill him." Despite everything, Nathaniel almost smiled. "What did he do?" "He left. But he said he'd be back with the law, that next time he'd bring federal marshals and I'd be dragged back to Boston in chains." She looked up at Nathaniel. "What if he's right? What if the law sides with him? Then we run." She stared at him. "What? We pack what we can carry and we go. North to Canada, south to Mexico, west to California. I don't care where. But I'm not letting him take you. Nathaniel, this is your home, your ranch. You can't just abandon everything. It's just land, Zoe. Just dirt and grass and cattle. You're my home now. Where you go, I go." Fresh tears spilled down her face. "You'd do that. Give up everything." In a heartbeat, she kissed him. Then fierce and desperate, and he kissed her back, trying to pour every promise he couldn't quite say into the press of his mouth against hers. When they finally pulled apart, she said, "I don't want to run. I'm tired of running. I want to fight." "Then we fight." "How?" Nathaniel thought for a moment. "We get our own lawyer. We file our own papers. We prove you're of sound mind. We prove our marriage is legal and valid. And we make it so expensive and difficult for him to pursue this that he gives up. He won't give up. Then we make him." Nathaniel stood, helped her to her feet. "Tomorrow we ride to Helena. There are lawyers there. Real lawyers, not Boston puppets. We'll find someone who can help us." "That's 3 days' ride." "Then we'd better start packing." They left at dawn the next morning, taking only what they needed: food, blankets, money Nathaniel had saved over the years. They left Buck with Tim Brennan, and his wife asked them to watch the ranch and headed east toward Helena. The ride was hard. November in Montana Territory meant cold mornings, and colder nights meant sleeping under the stars and waking with frost in their hair. But they rode side by side, and somehow the hardship felt like something they could bear together. On the second night, camped beside a frozen stream, Zoe said, "Tell me about Mary." Nathaniel looked up from the fire. "Why?" "Because you loved her. Because she was your wife. Because I want to know about the woman who came before me." He was quiet for a long moment. "She was strong, practical, didn't complain. She could work alongside me from sunup to sundown and never say she was tired. She wanted children, lots of them. Said the cabin was too quiet with just the two of us." "You must miss her." "I did. For a long time. But—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "Loving you doesn't mean I loved her less. Does that make sense?" "Yes." Zoe moved closer to the fire. "Sometimes I feel guilty. For being here. For being alive when she's not. Don't. Mary would have liked you. She would have been glad I wasn't alone anymore." "You think so?" "I know so." They reached Helena on the third day, exhausted and half frozen, but determined. The town was bigger than Silverdale, loud and crowded, full of miners and merchants and men looking to make their fortunes. Nathaniel asked around and finally found what they needed: a lawyer named Catherine Walsh. "A woman lawyer?" Zoe said, surprised. "Best in the territory according to the clerk at the land office. Said she doesn't lose." Catherine Walsh was 40-ish, sharp-eyed, dressed in a severe black suit that made her look like she could gut you with words alone. She listened to their story without interrupting, asked pointed questions, took notes, and finally sat back in her chair. "Your uncle is a bastard," she said bluntly. Zoe blinked. "Yes. And he's trying to use the legal system to perpetrate abuse. I hate that." "Can you help us?" Nathaniel asked. "Yes. But it won't be cheap and it won't be easy. He has money connections and paperwork from Massachusetts. We'll need to counter all of that." "What do we need?" "First, an evaluation from a Montana doctor attesting to Mrs. Reed's mental fitness. Second, sworn statements from people who can verify the abuse. Third, documentation of your marriage. Fourth, a petition to the territorial court for a restraining order. And fifth—" She looked at Zoe. "Fifth, you need to be willing to stand in front of a judge and tell your story. All of it. No matter how hard it is." Zoe's hands clenched in her lap. "I can do that." "Are you sure? Because he'll be there. His lawyer will be there. They'll try to tear you apart. They'll call you a liar, a hysteric, mentally unstable. They'll bring up every mistake you've ever made. It will be brutal." "I don't care." "What?" Zoe's voice was steady. "I'm done being afraid of him." Catherine smiled, a sharp, dangerous smile. "Good. Then let's destroy him." Over the next 2 weeks, they built their case. Dr. Benjamin Thorne, a respected physician in Helena, examined Zoe and declared her perfectly sane. Pastor Morris provided documentation of the marriage. Tim Brennan and his wife gave statements about Zoe's character. Even Sheriff Blackwood sent a letter describing the uncle's threatening behavior. And through it all, Zoe prepared to testify. Nathaniel watched her practice her testimony in their rented room, watched her shoulders straighten and her voice grow stronger, and felt pride swell in his chest. "You're going to do great," he said. "I'm terrified." Bravery isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. She looked at him. "Where'd you learn that?" "From you." The hearing was set for December 10th. Nathaniel and Zoe rode back to Helena through early winter storms, and on the morning of the hearing, Zoe stood in front of the mirror in their room and stared at her reflection. "I look like a child," she said. "You look like a woman who's been through hell and survived. What if I can't do this? What if I get up there and freeze?" Nathaniel came up behind her, put his hands on her shoulders. "Then I'll be right there. You won't be alone, not for 1 second." She nodded, squared her shoulders, and together they walked to the courthouse. The courtroom was smaller than Nathaniel expected, wood-paneled, dim, smelling of dust and old paper. The judge was an older man, named Harrison, stern-faced, but supposedly fair. Catherine Walsh sat at one table, Nathaniel and Zoe beside her. At the other table sat the Uncle Pemberton and another lawyer who'd come from Massachusetts. Judge Harrison called the court to order. "We're here to address a petition for custody filed by Mr. Thomas Caldwell regarding his niece, Zoe Caldwell, now Zoe Reed. Mr. Pemberton, you may present your case." Pemberton cleared his throat and launched into his argument. He painted Zoe as mentally unstable, prone to delusions, a danger to herself. He presented the doctor's papers from Boston, described her as manipulative and dishonest, claimed the marriage was entered into under duress. "Miss Caldwell has a history of erratic behavior," Pemberton said. "Running away, making false accusations, refusing proper medical treatment. Her uncle, out of love and concern, is simply trying to ensure she receives the care she desperately needs." When he finished, Catherine stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Mrs. Zoe Reed to testify." Zoe stood, walked to the witness chair, sat down. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was clear when she swore to tell the truth. Catherine started gently. "Mrs. Reed, can you tell the court about your childhood?" Zoe took a breath. "My parents died of scarlet fever when I was 12. My mother's brother, Thomas Caldwell, took me in. At first he seemed kind, but after a few months things changed." "How did they change?" "He started hitting me. Small things at first, a slap when I spoke out of turn, a shove when I moved too slow. But it got worse. By the time I was 16, I was afraid to leave my room." "Did you tell anyone?" "Who would I tell? He was my guardian. And he made sure I knew that no one would believe me. That I was lucky he'd taken me in at all. That I was a burden he bore out of Christian charity." "What happened when you turned 24? Zoe's voice hardened. "He told me he'd found a husband for me. A man named Frederick Ashton. He was 63 years old. He'd buried 3 wives already. And my uncle was selling me to him for $200. Objection. Pemberton was on his feet. "This is pure speculation. There's no evidence." "I have the bank receipt," Zoe said quietly. $200 deposited into my uncle's account on September 1st, 1883, from Mr. Frederick Ashton, with the notation, "for services rendered." Catherine smiled. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit this receipt as evidence." Harrison nodded. "Admitted." Pemberton sat down, his face red. "What did you do when you learned about this arrangement?" Catherine asked. "I ran. I took the money I'd saved from sewing, about $40, and I went to the Western Bride Agency. They arranged for me to come to Montana Territory to marry Mr. Reed." "And did your uncle try to stop you?" "Yes. The night before I left, he came to my room. He told me if I ran, he'd find me. He told me I belonged to him. And then he—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Then he hit me. Hard enough to knock me down. Hard enough to leave the bruise Mr. Reed saw when I arrived." "Why didn't you go to the police?" "Because he is the police. He's a magistrate in Boston. He has connections, power, money. Who would believe me over him?" Catherine nodded. "Mrs. Reed, your uncle claims you're mentally unfit, that you suffer from delusions and hysteria. What do you say to that?" "I say he's lying. I say he wants to control me, and this is how he does it, by making people think I'm crazy. But I'm not crazy. I'm just—" Her voice broke. "I'm just tired of being hurt." "No further questions, Your Honor." Pemberton stood for cross-examination, and Nathaniel felt his muscles tense. "Mrs. Reed, you claim your uncle abused you. But you lived with him for 12 years. If it was so terrible, why didn't you leave sooner?" "Because I had nowhere to go, no money, no family, and I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "A man who fed you, clothed you, provided you with education and shelter." "Afraid he'd kill me." Zoe's voice was flat. He told me once that if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure I never left anywhere again. I believed him. You say he hit you, but the only evidence of that is a bruise that could have come from anywhere. How do we know you didn't fall or injure yourself deliberately to make your uncle look bad? Catherine was on her feet. Your Honor. Sustained, Mr. Pemberton rephrase. Fine. Mrs. Reed, isn't it true that you have a history of self-harm? Zoe's face went white. No. No. Then what are these? Pemberton held up a paper. Medical records from Dr. Morrison documenting several instances of self-inflicted injuries when you were 17 and 18. Those weren't self-inflicted. Those were from my uncle. Dr. Morrison never examined me. He just wrote down what my uncle told him to write. That's a very convenient story. It's the truth. Or is it just another delusion? Another lie you've told yourself so many times you believe it? I'm not lying. Your Honor, Catherine said. This is harassment, not cross-examination. Mr. Pemberton, move on. Pemberton smiled. Mrs. Reed, you married Mr. Reed very quickly after arriving in Montana Territory. Only 3 weeks, in fact. Doesn't that seem impulsive? We married because we wanted to. Or because you were desperate. Because you knew your uncle was coming for you and you needed legal protection. That's not... You used Mr. Reed, didn't you? Manipulated him into marrying you so you could escape the consequences of your own mental illness. No. Zoe was shaking now. That's not true. I care about him. You what? Love him. After 3 weeks. Or is that just another delusion? Nathaniel couldn't take it anymore. He stood. That's enough. Mr. Reed, Judge Harrison said sharply, sit down. Not until he stops calling my wife a liar. Mr. Reed, sit down, or I'll hold you in contempt. Catherine grabbed Nathaniel's arm, pulled him back into his seat. Let me handle this. Judge Harrison looked at Pemberton. Are you finished? Yes, Your Honor. Then let's hear from Mr. Reed. Nathaniel stood, walked to the witness chair, his heart pounding. Catherine asked him about the day Zoe arrived, about the note from Mrs. Pritchard, about the bruise on Zoe's face, about the uncle's visit, his threats, his rage. Mr. Reed, Catherine said, why did you marry Mrs. Reed? Because she asked me to. Because she needed safety. And because... He looked at Zoe. Because I wanted to. Because having her in my life made me remember what it felt like to care about someone, to have a purpose beyond just surviving. Do you love your wife? Yes. Even though you've only known her a few months. I've known her long enough. Pemberton stood for cross. Mr. Reed, you're a widower, correct? Yes. You lost your wife and child 8 years ago. That must have been very difficult. It was. And you've been alone since then, lonely perhaps. What's your point? My point is that you were vulnerable, that when a young woman appeared on your doorstep desperate and claiming to need protection, you were predisposed to believe her, to want to believe her. I believe her because she's telling the truth, or because you wanted company so badly you didn't question her story, didn't investigate her claims, just accepted everything she said at face value. I believe her because I've seen the fear in her eyes, because I've heard her nightmares, because I've watched her flinch every time someone raises their voice. You don't fake that kind of trauma. Or perhaps you're the one who's been manipulated, Mr. Reed. Perhaps you're the victim here. Nathaniel leaned forward. The only victim here is my wife, and the only criminal is the man sitting at that table who beat her and sold her and is now trying to use the law to finish what he started. No further questions. Judge Harrison called a recess. Nathaniel and Zoe stood in the hallway, not talking, just holding hands and trying to breathe. You were amazing, Nathaniel said. I was terrified. You were brave. There's a difference. Catherine came out looking grim. He's good. Pemberton. He's making you look unstable and Nathaniel look naive. So we're going to lose? Zoe's voice was small. No, we still have our closing argument, and I'm going to make damn sure Harrison sees the truth. They went back inside. Pemberton gave his closing, painted the uncle as a caring guardian, trying to help a mentally ill relative, painted Nathaniel as a lonely man who'd been duped. Then Catherine stood. Your Honor, this case isn't complicated. It's about power. About a man who spent 12 years abusing his niece and is now trying to use the legal system to continue that abuse. Mr. Caldwell claims to care about his niece's well-being. But if that were true, why didn't he seek help for her when she lived with him? Why didn't he take her to doctors? Why didn't he try to get her treatment? She paused. Let that sink in. The answer is simple. Because she doesn't need treatment. She never did. She just needed to escape. And when she finally did, when she finally found the courage to run, he couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand losing his power over her. So he invented a mental illness. He fabricated medical records. He came all the way to Montana Territory to drag her back. Catherine walked toward the judge. Mrs. Reed has been evaluated by Dr. Thorne, a respected physician. He found her completely sane. She's been living independently, managing a household, contributing to a community. Does that sound like someone who's mentally unfit? Or does it sound like someone who's finally free? She turned to face the uncle. Mr. Caldwell wants you to believe his niece is crazy. But the only madness here is his. The madness of a man who thinks he owns another human being, who thinks he can use violence and intimidation and legal manipulation to maintain that ownership. Well, he can't. Not here. Not in Montana Territory. Not in this courtroom. She looked back at Harrison. Your Honor, I'm asking you to deny Mr. Caldwell's petition. To uphold Mrs. Reed's marriage. To recognize her right to choose her own life. And to send a message that abuse, no matter how well dressed, no matter how legally packaged, will not be tolerated. She sat down. Judge Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. I've heard both sides. I've reviewed the evidence. And I'm ready to make my ruling. Nathaniel felt Zoe's hand tighten around his. Mr. Caldwell, your petition is denied. The uncle's face went purple. Mrs. Reed is a married woman of legal age. Dr. Thorne's evaluation shows no evidence of mental illness. Her marriage to Mr. Reed appears to be legally valid and entered into of her own free will. You have no grounds to claim custody. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. You are to stay at least 500 yards away from Mrs. Reed at all times. If you violate this order, you will be arrested. Do you understand? The uncle stood trembling with rage. This isn't over. I'll appeal. I'll take this to the Supreme Court if I have to. You can try, but until then the order stands. This court is adjourned. Harrison's gavel came down like a gunshot. For a moment nobody moved. Then Zoe started crying great gasping sobs, and Nathaniel pulled her into his arms and held her while she fell apart. It's over, he whispered. You're free. You're finally free. And Zoe clung to him and cried like her heart was breaking. Except it wasn't breaking, it was healing finally after so many years. They left Helena the next morning. The uncle and his lawyers had already gone, headed back to Boston to lick their wounds. Nathaniel and Zoe rode home slowly, stopping to camp and rest, in no hurry now that the threat had passed. On their last night before reaching the ranch, Zoe said, I think I'm pregnant. Nathaniel, who'd been building up the fire, froze. What? I think I'm pregnant. I'm late. And I've been feeling different. Tired. Emotional. She looked at him. Are you angry? Angry, Zoe. He crossed to her, knelt in front of her. I'm happy. Terrified. But happy. Are you? Is this something you want? I don't know. Her voice was honest. I'm scared. What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I'm like my uncle? You won't be. You couldn't be. You're nothing like him. How do you know? Because you're worried about it, because you care. That already makes you different. She touched his face. We're really going to do this. Have a baby, be a family. If that's what you want, it is. She smiled, and it was the first real unguarded smile he'd seen from her. I want everything. I want a life. I want a future. I want to be happy. Then we'll be happy, Nathaniel said. Together. They reached the ranch 2 days later. Buck met them at the gate tail, wagging frantically. Tim and his wife had kept the place running, cattle-fed chickens alive, cabin clean. Welcome home, Tim said, grinning. And it was home. Finally, truly home. That night, Nathaniel and Zoe lay in their bed listening to the wind outside and the fire crackling in the hearth. Zoe's hand rested on her still flat stomach. What if it's a girl? She asked. Then she'll be fierce like her mother. What if it's a boy? Then he'll be gentle like his father. Zoe laughed. You're not gentle. You threatened to shoot 3 men. I'm gentle when it matters. She rolled over, looked at him. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For not looking away when it would have been easier. For making me believe I deserved to be loved. Nathaniel kissed her forehead. You're not alone now. Not ever again. And as snow began to fall outside, covering the Montana landscape in white, Nathaniel Reed and his wife slept peacefully, finally free of the ghosts that had haunted them both. Finally home. Spring came late to Montana that year, but when it finally arrived, it brought warmth that felt like forgiveness. Zoe's belly had begun to swell by March, a small roundness that made Nathaniel's chest tighten every time he saw it. She moved differently now, slower, more careful, and he found himself watching her constantly. Terrified something would go wrong. Stop hovering, she said one morning, catching him staring at her while she kneaded bread dough. I'm not hovering. You've checked on me 4 times in the last hour. I'm just making sure you're comfortable. She turned to face him, flour dusting her hands and forearms. Nathaniel. I'm pregnant, not dying. Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. Mary died doing this. The words came out before he could stop them, raw and honest and terrifying. Zoe's expression softened. I'm not Mary. I know, but I can't. He stopped, swallowed hard. I can't lose you too. She crossed to him, took his face in her floury hands. You won't. I'm strong. The baby's strong. Dr. Thorne said everything looks perfect. Dr. Thorne is 3 days right away. Then we'll bring him closer when the time comes. Or we'll manage on our own. Women out here do it all the time. That doesn't make me less afraid. I know. She kissed him gently. But fear doesn't change what's coming. So we might as well choose hope instead. Nathaniel nodded, tried to believe her, and went back to work feeling only slightly less terrified. The ranch needed attention after the long winter. Fences had to be mended, cattle moved to fresh pasture, a new roof put on the chicken coop. Nathaniel threw himself into the work, trying to quiet the anxiety that lived in his chest like a second heartbeat. Tim Brennan rode over one afternoon in early April, his face grim. Trouble? Nathaniel asked. Could be. Stranger came through Silverdale yesterday asking questions about you and Zoe. Well-dressed, Eastern accent. Said he was conducting research for a legal case. Nathaniel felt his stomach drop. What kind of questions? About your marriage. About Zoe's state of mind. About whether folks thought she was stable. Tim paused. About whether you'd coerced her into marrying you. Her uncle. That'd be my guess. He's not giving up. Nathaniel looked back at the cabin where Zoe was inside resting. 4 months pregnant and still not safe. Still not free. What did people tell him? Nothing useful. Folks around here like Zoe. They see how hard she works, how kind she is. They're not going to help some stranger from Boston tear her life apart. Tim shifted in his saddle. But Nathaniel, you need to be careful. Men with money and grudges don't quit easy. After Tim left, Nathaniel sat on the porch and tried to figure out what to do. They'd won in court. They had a legal ruling, but clearly that wasn't enough. The uncle was still circling, still hunting, still trying to find a way to drag Zoe back into his control. "What are you thinking about?" Zoe stood in the doorway, one hand on her belly, watching him with those two knowing eyes. "Nothing." "Liar. You have your worried face on." He almost smiled. "I have a worried face." "You do. Your jaw gets tight, and your eyes go distant, and you look like you're trying to solve a problem you can't solve." She came out, sat beside him. "What did Tim say?" Nathaniel hesitated, then told her. About the stranger. About the questions. About her uncle's refusal to give up. Zoe was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "He's not going to stop, is he?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You're just afraid to say it." She looked at him. "He'll keep coming. He'll keep trying. Until one of us is dead, he won't stop." "Don't talk like that." "It's the truth. You know it is." She put her hand over his. "So what do? We stay vigilant. We keep our doors locked. We live in fear forever." She shook her head. "No, I'm done with that. I'm done letting him dictate how I feel in my own home." "Then what do you suggest?" "I don't know yet. But there has to be something, some way to make him understand that I'm never going back, that he's lost." Nathaniel wanted to tell her it would be okay, that they'd figure it out, but the words stuck in his throat because he wasn't sure they were true. That night, Zoe had a nightmare. Nathaniel woke to her thrashing beside him, whimpering, and he gathered her into his arms. "It's okay. You're safe. I'm here." She woke with a gasp, her face wet with tears. "He had the baby, in the dream. He took our baby and said it was his now, that everything I loved belonged to him." "That's not going to happen." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can, because I will die before I let him touch you or our child. Do you understand me? I will burn this whole territory down before I let him hurt you." She clung to him, shaking, and he held her until dawn broke and the nightmare faded into the gray light of morning. By May, Zoe was 6 months along and glowing despite her fears. Her belly had grown round and prominent, and Nathaniel had taken to reading to it at night passages from the Bible stories, from the newspaper, anything he thought the baby might like to hear. "You're ridiculous," Zoe said, but she was smiling. "The baby needs to know my voice. The baby hears your voice all day long. This is different. This is intentional." He pressed his ear against her belly. "I'm telling them about the world they're coming into." "What are you saying? That they're going to have a mother who's braver than anyone I've ever met, and a father who's going to try his best not to mess them up too badly." Zoe ran her fingers through his hair. "You're going to be a wonderful father." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because you're a wonderful husband." He looked up at her. "I love you." She'd heard it before, he'd said it a dozen times in the past few months, but her eyes still filled with tears every time. "I love you too, even when you hover." "Especially when I hover." "Especially then." One warm afternoon in late May, Zoe was working in the garden when a contraction hit. Not labor too early for labor, but pain sharp enough to double her over. Nathaniel was in the barn and heard her cry out. He ran, his heart hammering, and found her kneeling in the dirt, her face pale. "What's wrong?" "Pain. Sharp. It's—" She gasped as another contraction hit. "Something's wrong." He swept her into his arms and carried her to the cabin, laid her on the bed, his hands shaking. "I'm getting Dr. Thorne. He's 3 days away. I don't have 3 days. Then I'm getting help from town, someone who knows about this." He rode hard to Silverdale, found Mrs. Emma Brennan, Tim's wife, who'd helped birth half the babies in the territory, and brought her back at a gallop. Emma examined Zoe while Nathaniel paced outside, praying to a God he wasn't sure was listening. Finally, Emma emerged. "She's going to be fine. The baby's fine. It was just Braxton Hicks contractions, practice contractions. Happens sometimes, especially with first babies. Nathaniel nearly collapsed with relief. You're sure? Positive. But she needs to rest. No more garden work. No heavy lifting. She needs to take it easy until the baby comes. I'll make sure she does. Emma smiled. Good, because that woman of yours is stubborn as a mule and won't listen to anyone but you. After Emma left, Nathaniel went inside and found Zoe crying. Hey. He sat beside her, took her hand. Emma said you're both fine. I was so scared. I thought I was losing the baby. I thought my body was betraying me like everything else in my life has betrayed me. Your body didn't betray you. It's just preparing, getting ready to bring our child into the world. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough? You're the strongest person I know. I'm not. I'm terrified all the time. Terrified of my uncle, terrified of childbirth, terrified of being a mother. What if I fail? What if I ruin this child the way my uncle ruined me? Nathaniel pulled her into his arms. Listen to me. You are nothing like your uncle. Nothing. You're kind and brave and good, and our child is going to be so lucky to have you as a mother. How do you know? Because you're already worried about being a good parent. Bad parents don't worry about that. They just are bad and don't care. But you care. That's what matters. She nodded against his chest, and he held her while she cried herself out, and he prayed he was right. June brought heat and thunderstorms that rattled the cabin windows. Zoe was 7 months pregnant now, moving slow and tired, her back aching, her feet swollen. Nathaniel did everything he could to make her comfortable, rubbed her feet at night, cooked meals when she was too exhausted, helped her in and out of bed when her belly made it difficult. I'm enormous, she said one evening, staring at her reflection in the small mirror over the wash basin. You're beautiful. I'm a whale. You're carrying our child. That makes you the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She turned to look at him. You really mean that? Every word. She smiled, then winced. The baby's kicking again. Here. She took his hand, placed it on her belly. Nathaniel felt the flutter of movement beneath his palm and felt his throat tighten. His child, his and Zoe's, a whole new life they'd created together. Strong kicks, he said. Takes after their father. Or their mother. They stood there together, his hand on her belly, feeling their baby move, and for that moment, everything was perfect. Then, someone knocked on the door. Nathaniel tensed immediately. It was late past 9 o'clock, and they rarely had visitors after dark. He grabbed his rifle, motioned for Zoe to stay back, and opened the door a crack. Sheriff Blackwood stood on the porch, his hat in his hands, his face grave. Sheriff, what's wrong? Can I come in? Nathaniel opened the door wider. Blackwood entered, nodded to Zoe, then turned to Nathaniel. I've got bad news. Thomas Caldwell died 3 days ago in Boston. Heart attack according to the telegram I received. Silence. Complete ringing silence. Zoe made a sound, half gasp, half sob, and sank into a chair. You're sure? Nathaniel asked. Positive. The telegram came from the Boston Police Department. He collapsed in his office, dead before the doctor arrived. Did he? Zoe's voice was shaking. Did he suffer? Blackwood looked surprised by the question. I don't know, ma'am. Why? Because I want him to have suffered. Her voice hardened. I want him to have felt even a fraction of the pain he caused me. I want him to have died knowing he failed. That he lost. That I got away and he couldn't stop me. Nathaniel moved to her side, put his hand on her shoulder. It's over, Blackwood said gently. He can't hurt you anymore. Can't pursue you. Can't try to take you back. You're free, Mrs. Reed. Truly free. After Blackwood left, Zoe sat in silence for a long time. Nathaniel didn't push her to talk, just sat beside her and waited. Finally, she said, I thought I'd feel relieved. But I just feel empty. That's normal. Is it because I hated him? I wanted him dead. And now he is, and I don't know what to feel. Feel whatever you need to feel. There's no right answer here. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I wanted him to see me happy. I wanted him to see that I survived. That I built a good life without him. That his cruelty didn't destroy me. But now he's dead, and he'll never know. He'll never see what I became. You became this in spite of him, not because of him. That's what matters. I wanted closure. I don't know what I wanted. Justice, maybe. Revenge, something. You got something better. You got free. You got to live. She nodded, wiped her eyes. You're right. I know you're right, but it still feels incomplete. Then we'll make it complete. We'll live such a good life that his memory fades. We'll raise our children with kindness and love. We'll prove that his way, violence and control, doesn't win. That love wins. That we win. She reached for his hand. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll never let our children know his name. Promise me we'll never tell them about him. He doesn't deserve to exist in their memories. I promise. That night, Nathaniel held Zoe while she slept, and he thought about the uncle dying alone in his office, defeated and bitter, never knowing peace. And he thought about Zoe growing life inside her, choosing love over hate, choosing to build instead of destroy. The uncle had lost. Completely, totally, irreversibly lost. And Nathaniel had won more than he'd ever dreamed possible. July came hot and dry. Zoe was 8 months pregnant now, uncomfortable and restless, ready for the baby to come, but terrified of labor. Emma Brennan visited regularly, checking on her, reassuring her that everything was progressing normally. You're doing great, Emma said after one examination. Baby's in the right position. Your body's preparing. Could be any day now. Any day. Zoe looked panicked. Or could be 3 weeks. First babies like to take their time. After Emma left, Zoe paced the cabin, one hand on her lower back, the other on her belly. I'm not ready, she said. You are. I'm not. I don't know how to be a mother. I don't know how to take care of a baby. What if I drop it? What if I forget to feed it? What if... Zoe. Nathaniel caught her hands, made her look at him. You're going to be fine. Better than fine. And I'll be right there with you. We'll figure it out together. You promise? I promise. She nodded, took a shaky breath. Okay. I can do this. You can do anything. 2 days later, Nathaniel was mending fence when he heard Zoe call his name. Not scared, just urgent. He dropped his tools and ran. She was standing in the doorway, one hand on the frame, the other on her belly. My water broke. Nathaniel's mind went blank. Then training kicked in. Emma had told him what to do. Get Zoe comfortable. Boil water. Send for help. Tim, he shouted across the field. I need you. Tim came running. What's wrong? Baby's coming. Ride to town. Get Emma. Fast. Tim was on his horse and gone before Nathaniel finished speaking. Nathaniel helped Zoe inside, got her settled on the bed. She was breathing hard, her face already flushed with effort. How far apart are the contractions? I don't know. 10 minutes? Maybe less. Nathaniel. I'm scared. I know. But Emma's coming. And until she gets here, I'm here. You're not alone. The contractions came faster. Zoe gripped his hand hard enough to bruise her face, twisted with pain. I can't do this. Yes, you can. It hurts. God, it hurts. I know, sweetheart. I know. But you're strong. You're the strongest person I've ever met. And at the end of this, we get to meet our baby. She nodded, gasping, and another contraction hit. Emma arrived 2 hours later, calm and efficient, and took over. She examined Zoe, checked the baby's position, and nodded. You're doing great. Won't be long now. How long? Zoe asked through gritted teeth. Hour or 2, maybe less. You're progressing fast for a first baby. Nathaniel stayed at Zoe's side, letting her squeeze his hand, wiping sweat from her forehead, whispering encouragement when she said she couldn't do it anymore. Yes, you can. Just a little longer. You're almost there. I can't. I can't. It's too much. You can. I know you can. You survived your uncle. You survived running away. You survived a court battle. This is just one more thing you're going to survive. She looked at him, her eyes desperate and determined, and nodded. Okay. Okay. I can do this. And she did. 3 hours after her water broke with the sun setting outside and Emma coaching her through each push, Zoe gave birth to a daughter. The baby's cry filled the cabin loud and furious and perfect, and Nathaniel felt tears streaming down his face. It's a girl, Emma said, smiling. A healthy, beautiful girl. She cleaned the baby, wrapped her in a blanket, and placed her in Zoe's arms. Zoe stared at her daughter with wonder and terror and overwhelming love. She's so small. She's perfect, Nathaniel said, his voice breaking. She has your eyes. She has your stubbornness. Look at that chin. Zoe laughed, exhausted, delirious, happy. And the baby stopped crying, looking up at her mother with dark, serious eyes. Hello, Zoe whispered. I'm your mama, and that's your papa. And we're going to love you so much. We're going to give you everything we never had. Safety, kindness, freedom. You're never going to be afraid. Not ever. The baby yawned, tiny fists waving, and Nathaniel felt his heart crack open. What should we name her? Zoe asked. I was thinking Amelia, after your mother. Zoe's eyes filled with tears. You remembered. Of course I remembered. Amelia Reed. She tested the name, smiled. It's perfect. Emma left after making sure Zoe and the baby were stable. Tim came by with his wife, brought food and congratulations, then quietly left them alone. That night, Nathaniel sat in the rocking chair with Amelia in his arms, while Zoe slept. The baby was so small, so fragile, and he was terrified he'd break her. But she fit perfectly in the crook of his arm, sleeping peacefully, and he found himself talking to her. Your mother is the bravest person I've ever met. She survived things that would have destroyed most people. And she's going to teach you to be brave too. She's going to teach you that you're worth fighting for, that you deserve love and safety and happiness. And I'm going to make sure you never have to fight for those things. I'm going to make sure you grow up knowing you're loved, that you're wanted, that you matter. The baby sighed in her sleep, and Nathaniel kissed her forehead. Welcome to the world, Amelia Reed. Your mama and I have been waiting for you. The first weeks were hard. Amelia cried a lot, and neither Nathaniel nor Zoe knew what they were doing. They stumbled through feedings and diaper changes, and sleepless nights learning as they went, making mistakes and fixing them. But slowly they found their rhythm. Zoe learned to nurse while reading. Nathaniel learned to change diapers without gagging. They took turns pacing the floor with a fussy baby at 3 in the morning, sang terrible lullabies, made up stories about the ranch and the mountains and all the places Amelia would explore when she was older. She's going to be a handful, Zoe said one afternoon, watching Amelia kick her legs and wave her arms with determined energy. She's her mother's daughter. That's what worries me. Nathaniel laughed. It shouldn't. You turned out pretty damn good. You're biased. Completely. He kissed her. And I wouldn't change a thing. 1 month after Amelia was born, on a clear August morning, Nathaniel woke to find Zoe already up, sitting in the rocking chair with the baby singing softly. Can't sleep? He asked. No, I wanted to watch her, to memorize her face, to make sure this is real. It's real. I know. But sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and it'll all be gone. That I'll be back in Boston in my uncle's house, and this will have been a dream. Nathaniel got out of bed, knelt beside the rocking chair, put his hand over hers. You're not in Boston. You're here, in Montana, with me, with Amelia. This is your life now. This is real. She looked at him, and there were tears in her eyes. I never thought I'd be happy. I never thought I deserved it." "You do deserve it. You deserve everything good in the world. So do you." They sat together in the early morning light watching their daughter sleep, and Nathaniel thought about the letter he'd received almost a year ago, about the mail-order bride he'd expected, about the bruised, terrified woman who'd stepped off that stagecoach, and about the wife she'd become, the mother she'd become, the life they'd built together. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For choosing me, for trusting me, for giving me this." Zoe leaned her head against his shoulder. "Thank you for making me believe I was worth choosing." Outside, the sun rose over the Montana mountains, painting everything gold. The cattle lowed in the distance. Buck barked at something in the yard. And inside the cabin, a family sat together, safe and whole and free. The ghosts of Boston were finally gone. And in their place was something neither Nathaniel nor Zoe had believed possible: home. Not just a place, but a feeling, a certainty, a promise that no matter what came next, hard winters or difficult years or the inevitable struggles of raising a child, they would face it together. The rancher who'd found a mail-order bride with a bruised face and a note had told her, "You're not alone now." And he'd meant it. She never was alone again. Amelia was 3 months old when the first letter arrived. Nathaniel found it when he rode into Silverdale for supplies, a cream-colored envelope with his name written in elegant script postmarked from Boston. His stomach dropped. He waited until he got home to open it, sat at the kitchen table, while Zoe nursed Amelia in the rocking chair, and unfolded the single page inside. "What is it?" Zoe asked, seeing his face. "Letter from a lawyer in Boston. A Mr. Harrington." Nathaniel scanned the contents, his jaw tightening. "Your uncle's estate is being settled. Apparently he left a will." Zoe's face went pale. "What does it say?" "Says you're entitled to a portion of his estate, that he left instructions for—" Nathaniel stopped, looked up at her. "He left you $50,000. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. "That's not possible," Zoe said finally. "He hated me. He wouldn't leave me anything." "According to this, he did. There's a condition, though." "Of course there is. You have to come to Boston to claim it, in person, within 6 months, or the money goes to charity." Zoe laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "So even dead, he's still trying to control me, still trying to get me back to Boston." "We don't have to go. We don't need his money." $50,000, Nathaniel. That's more money than we'll see in a lifetime of ranching. That's security. That's being able to expand the ranch, hire help, send Amelia to school someday. That's everything. It's not worth going back there. Not worth the risk. What risk? He's dead. His lawyers just want to settle the estate. She shifted Amelia to her shoulder, began patting her back. Maybe this is his way of apologizing, of trying to make amends. Men like your uncle don't apologize. Then maybe it's just guilt. Maybe on his deathbed he realized what he'd done and wanted to make it right. Nathaniel folded the letter. "I don't trust it." "I don't either. But Nathaniel, $50,000. We could build a real house, add on to the cabin, buy more land. We could give Amelia things we never had." "Amelia doesn't need things. She needs her mother safe and happy." "I know, but—" Zoe looked down at their daughter sleeping peacefully against her shoulder. "Don't you want to give her more than we had? Don't you want her to have opportunities? Education. A future beyond this ranch. I want her to have parents who are alive and together. That's worth more than any inheritance." Zoe was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What if we just inquire? Write back and ask for more details. Find out if there are other conditions. If it seems legitimate, we consider it. If not, we walk away." Nathaniel wanted to say no, wanted to burn the letter and forget it existed, but he saw the hope in Zoe's eyes, hope for their daughter, hope for a better future, and he couldn't quite kill it. "Fine, we'll inquire. But if anything seems wrong, we're done." "Agreed. Agreed." They wrote back the next day. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived with more details. The inheritance was real. The only condition was that Zoe appear in person to sign documents and verify her identity. The lawyer, Mr. Harrington, assured them it was standard procedure for estates of this size. "It sounds legitimate," Zoe said, reading the letter for the third time. "Or it's designed to sound legitimate. Nathaniel, what's the worst that could happen? We go to Boston, sign papers, get the money, come home. We'll be gone 2 weeks at most. And leave Amelia. We take her with us. She's still nursing. I can't leave her. Take a 3-month-old baby across the country, Zoe. That's what people do. Families travel. And it's not like we're going to war. We're going to a lawyer's office in a city." Nathaniel looked at his wife, determined, hopeful, already planning, and felt dread settle in his stomach. "I have a bad feeling about this." "You have a bad feeling about everything lately. You wouldn't let me lift anything heavier than a teacup until Amelia was 6 weeks old. That's different. That was your health. And this is our future. Our daughter's future." She took his hand. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we can't live our whole lives afraid of shadows. My uncle is dead. He can't hurt me anymore. This money, if it's real, could change everything for us." Nathaniel looked at Amelia sleeping in her cradle, looked at Zoe, her eyes bright with possibility. And despite every instinct screaming at him to refuse, he found himself nodding. 2 weeks, that's it. We go, we sign papers, we come straight home." Zoe smiled and kissed him. 2 weeks. They left in early September, taking the stagecoach east. The journey was brutal, long days of travel, cramped spaces, Amelia crying from the jostling. But Zoe handled it with surprising calm, nursing the baby, singing to her, keeping her content as much as possible. Nathaniel spent most of the trip watching the landscape change from open prairie to farmland to cities, and fighting the growing certainty that they'd made a mistake. "Talk to me," Zoe said one evening as they stopped at a way station. "You've barely said 3 words all day." "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About whether we're walking into a trap." "We're not." "You don't know that." "And you don't know we are. Nathaniel, you can't protect me from everything. Sometimes you have to trust that things work out." "Things didn't work out for you in Boston the first time." She flinched. "That was different." "Was it your uncle controlled you then? Maybe he's still controlling you now. Maybe this whole thing is designed to I don't know what, but something feels wrong. Or maybe you're looking for problems because you're scared of being happy, because you think if things are good they'll get taken away." The words hit him like a slap. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You've been waiting for disaster since Amelia was born, hovering over me, checking on her, constantly jumping at every noise. You're so afraid of losing us that you can't enjoy having us." "I'm just trying to keep you safe." "I know. But Nathaniel, we're safe. We won. My uncle is dead. The court ruled in our favor. We have a daughter and a home and each other. At some point you have to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I lost everyone I loved once. I can't do it again." Her expression softened. "You won't. I'm not Mary. Amelia is not your son. We're here. We're alive. And we're going to stay that way." He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to believe her. Boston was overwhelming noise and crowds and buildings taller than anything Nathaniel had seen. Zoe grew quieter as they navigated the streets, her hand tight on his arm, her other arm cradling Amelia close. "You okay?" he asked. "Just memories. I'll be fine." They found Mr. Harrington's office in a building near the harbor. The lawyer was exactly what Nathaniel expected, middle-aged, well-dressed professional. He greeted them warmly, offered tea, cooed over Amelia. "Mrs. Reed, thank you for making the journey. I know it must have been difficult." "It was necessary," Zoe said. "The letter said my uncle left me an inheritance." Indeed he did. $50,000 to be precise. plus the contents of his house on Beacon Street. Zoe blinked. His house? Everything in it. Furniture, artwork, personal effects. It's all yours if you want it. Or we can arrange to have it sold, and the proceeds added to your inheritance. I don't want anything from that house, Zoe said immediately. Sell it all. I don't care what it's worth. Harrington nodded, made a note. Understandable. Now there are documents to sign. Verification of identity. Standard procedure for estates of this size. He pulled out a stack of papers. Zoe began reading through them while Nathaniel held Amelia, bouncing her gently when she started to fuss. This all looks correct, Zoe said after several minutes. Where do I sign? Just here and here and... The door opened. Nathaniel looked up and felt his blood go cold. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, older, well-dressed. And behind him 2 other men, bigger, harder, the kind of men you hired when you needed something unpleasant done. Mrs. Reed, the man said, smiling. How wonderful to finally meet you. I'm Frederick Ashton. The name hit Nathaniel like a punch. Frederick Ashton. The man Zoe's uncle had sold her to. The 63-year-old widower who'd paid $200 for a bride. Zoe had gone white. What are you doing here? Claiming what's mine, of course. Ashton stepped into the office, the 2 men following. You see, when your uncle died, our agreement became complicated. I'd paid for you, but you'd run away. That made things difficult from a legal standpoint. You have no legal claim on me. I'm married. Married under false pretenses. Your uncle had you declared mentally unfit. That makes any contracts you entered into, including marriage, legally void. That declaration was overturned by a Montana court. Montana isn't Boston, and Boston law takes precedence in matters of Massachusetts estates. Ashton smiled, and it was the smile of a snake. Your uncle was clever. He knew you'd come back for the money. He knew you couldn't resist, and he made provisions in his will that if you returned to Massachusetts within a year of his death, you would be remanded to my custody as per our original agreement. That's insane, Nathaniel said. You can't. I can, actually. Mr. Harrington. The lawyer stood looking uncomfortable but resolute. It's all legal, I'm afraid. The will is very specific. Mrs. Reed entered Massachusetts voluntarily. That triggers the custody clause. I didn't enter voluntarily. You lied to me. You tricked me into coming here. You came for money. That's voluntary. Ashton gestured to the 2 men. Gentlemen, please escort Mrs. Reed to the carriage. Don't touch her. Nathaniel handed Amelia to Zoe and stepped between her and the men. Don't you dare touch her. Mr. Reed, this doesn't concern you. Your marriage is void. Mrs. Reed is mine. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. One of the men moved forward. Nathaniel hit him hard, a right cross that sent the man staggering back. The second man lunged, and Nathaniel grappled with him, fighting dirty, using every trick he'd learned in 42 years of ranching and surviving. But they were younger, stronger, and there were 2 of them. They got him down, pinned him, and Nathaniel shouted, "Run, Zoe, run!" But Zoe didn't run. She stood there clutching Amelia, tears streaming down her face, and said, "Stop, please stop. You're hurting him." Then come quietly, Ashton said, and we'll let him go. Zoe, no. They'll kill you, Nathaniel. They'll kill you and take me anyway, and Amelia will have no one. At least this way you're alive. I don't care about being alive if you're not with me. I care. She looked at him, and her eyes were breaking. I care. Take care of our daughter. Please. Promise me. No. Zoe, no. But the men were already dragging her toward the door. She held Amelia tight, whispering to her, and then she looked back at Nathaniel one last time. I love you. Remember that. No matter what happens. I love you. Then she was gone. Nathaniel tried to get up to follow, but the men held him down until he heard a carriage leave. Then they let him go and walked out, leaving him alone in the office with Harrington. You bastard, Nathaniel said, his voice raw. You lying bastard? I'm sorry, Harrington said, and he actually sounded sorry. But the law is the law. Where did they take her? I don't know. Liar. Mr. Reed, I genuinely don't know. My job was to get her here. What happens next isn't my concern. Nathaniel grabbed the lawyer by his collar, slammed him against the wall. Tell me where she is, or I'll kill you right here. Ashton's estate, outside the city. But you'll never get in. He has guards, walls, dogs, and you're just one man. Nathaniel shoved him away, stumbled out of the office and stood in the street trying to breathe, trying to think, trying not to collapse under the weight of what had just happened. Zoe was gone. Taken. And he had no idea how to get her back. He spent the rest of the day searching, asked questions, paid bribes, found out that Frederick Ashton owned an estate 10 miles north of Boston, a massive property surrounded by high walls and iron gates. Nathaniel rode out there that night, stood outside the gate staring at the house beyond lit from within, and felt helpless rage burning in his chest. She was in there, his wife, with their daughter, in the hands of a man who'd bought her like property. He tried the gates, locked, climbed the wall, got halfway up before dogs started barking and guards shouted. He dropped back down and retreated before they could shoot him. He went back to the boarding house where they'd been staying and lay in the empty bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. He had no legal recourse. Ashton had lawyers' money, Boston law on his side. He had no help. He knew no one in this city. He had no plan, just rage and desperation, and the absolute certainty that he couldn't leave Zoe in that house. Around 3 a.m, someone knocked on his door. Nathaniel opened it to find a woman standing in the hallway. Older, well-dressed with sharp eyes, and the bearing of someone used to being obeyed. Mr. Reed, I'm Catherine Walsh. He stared at her. The lawyer from Helena. What are you doing here? Saving your wife. May I come in? He stepped back, let her enter. She sat in the room's only chair and looked at him. I heard what happened. Ashton's been bragging about it all over Boston, how he finally got his hands on Thomas Caldwell's rebellious niece. Can you help me get her back? Not legally. He has every advantage there, but I didn't come here to practice law. She pulled a folded paper from her bag. I came here to commit a crime. Nathaniel looked at the paper. It was a map of Ashton's estate, detailed, showing guard positions, patrol routes, the house layout. How did you get this? I have friends in low places, and I hate men who think they can buy women. She pointed to a spot on the map. This is the east wall. It's the least guarded. There's a blind spot between 2 patrol routes. You'll have a 10-minute window around midnight tomorrow. Why tomorrow? Because Ashton is hosting a dinner party. The house will be busy, guards will be distracted, and your wife will be... She paused. She'll be presentable, on display. That's how men like Ashton operate. They show off their possessions. Nathaniel felt sick. You're telling me to break in. I'm telling you that if you want your wife back, the law won't help you, so you'll have to help yourself. She stood. Be at this address tomorrow at 11. She handed him another paper. My associates will provide you with what you need. Why are you doing this? Because I've spent 20 years watching men use the law to abuse women, and I'm tired of it. She moved toward the door. Get your wife back, Mr. Reed, and then get out of Massachusetts before they hang you for it. After she left, Nathaniel sat with the map and tried to plan. Tried to think like a soldier instead of a rancher. Tried to figure out how to get into that house, find Zoe and Amelia, and get out alive. He barely slept. The next day, he went to the address Catherine had given him. Found himself in a rough part of Boston, in front of a building that looked like a warehouse. He knocked. A man opened the door, scarred, missing part of his left ear, dangerous looking. Reed. Yes. Walsh sent you. Come in. Inside were 3 other men, all cut from the same cloth, hard experience, the kind of men who'd seen the wrong side of the law and made peace with it. You know what you're doing? The scarred man asked. Breaking into Ashton's estate, getting my wife. You ever done anything like this before? No? Great. We love amateurs. He gestured to a table covered in equipment. Here's what you need. Dark clothes, rope, knife, gun if you know how to use one. I know how to use one. Good, because Ashton's guards won't hesitate to shoot you. He unrolled the map. Here's the plan. You go in at midnight, through this blind spot. We'll create a distraction on the north side, small fire. Nothing dangerous, just enough to pull the guards. You'll have 15 minutes, maybe 20 if we're lucky. You get in, find your wife, get out. We'll have horses waiting here. He pointed to a spot outside the estate. You ride hard. You don't stop. You get to the train station and you leave Boston. Understood? Why are you helping me? The man smiled a bitter, knowing smile. Because Ashton killed my sister. Called it suicide. But I know better. So if we can hurt him even a little, it's worth it. Nathaniel nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if you survive. Midnight came cold and clear. Nathaniel stood outside Ashton's estate, wearing dark clothes, a rope coiled over his shoulder, a knife at his belt, a revolver tucked into his waistband. His hands were shaking. Then from the north side of the estate, flames shot into the sky, shouting, guards running. The distraction had begun. Nathaniel moved fast, hit the wall at the blind spot, threw the rope over, climbed. His hands were sweating. His heart was hammering. But he got over the wall and dropped into the manicured grounds beyond. Lights blazed from the house. He could hear music, laughter. The dinner party. He ran low and fast, keeping to shadows, heading for a side door Catherine's map had marked as usually unlocked. He tried the handle. It opened. He slipped inside and found himself in a servant's hallway. Voices echoed from the main rooms. He followed the map in his head, moving through the house like a ghost. Then he heard crying. A baby crying. Amelia. He followed the sound to a room on the second floor, opened the door. And there was Zoe sitting in a chair holding their daughter, tears streaming down her face, wearing a dress that wasn't hers, expensive, constrictive, wrong. Nathaniel. She looked up and her expression went from despair to shock to overwhelming relief. Oh my God, how did you? No time. We're leaving. Now. There are guards. There's a fire. They're distracted. Come on. She stood clutching Amelia and followed him into the hallway. They moved fast, retracing his steps, heading for the side door. They almost made it. Then Frederick Ashton stepped out of a doorway 10 feet ahead of them. Going somewhere. He smiled that snake smile. I had a feeling you'd try something foolish. Get out of my way. Or what, you'll shoot me in my own house in front of a dozen witnesses, if I have to. You won't make it out alive. I don't care. Nathaniel raised the revolver, and Ashton's smile faltered. You're bluffing. Try me. For a moment, they stood there, Nathaniel with the gun, Ashton blocking the exit. Zoe behind Nathaniel holding Amelia. Then Ashton moved. He was fast, for an old man lunged forward, grabbed for the gun. They grappled, the revolver between them, and Nathaniel felt his finger slip toward the trigger. The gun went off. The sound was deafening in the enclosed hallway. Ashton staggered back, a bloom of red spreading across his white shirt. He looked down at the wound, then up at Nathaniel, surprised. You actually shot me. You shouldn't have touched my wife. Ashton collapsed. Nathaniel didn't wait to see if he was dead. He grabbed Zoe's hand and ran. They burst out the side door into chaos, guards running toward the fire servants, shouting, smoke in the air. They ran for the wall, Nathaniel boosting Zoe up first, then climbing after her. They dropped on the other side and found the horses exactly where they were supposed to be. They rode hard through the night, Zoe holding Amelia against her chest. Nathaniel beside her, both of them expecting bullets or pursuit that never came. By dawn, they were at the train station. By noon, they were on a train heading west. And only when they crossed out of Massachusetts did Nathaniel finally let himself breathe. Is he dead? Zoe asked quietly. I don't know. Maybe. If he is, they'll come after you. Let them try. She looked at him, and her eyes were full of something he couldn't quite name. Gratitude, love, fear. You came for me. Of course I came for you. You could have died. You almost did die. I meant what I said in that hallway. I don't care about being alive if you're not with me. Fresh tears spilled down her face. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have known it was a trap. It's not your fault. It's his, and your uncle's, and every other bastard who thinks he can control women like property. He took her hand. But it's over now. We're going home. What if they follow us? Then we'll deal with it, together. Amelia stirred in Zoe's arms, let out a small cry. Zoe rocked her gently, and the baby settled. She was so scared, Zoe whispered. In that house. She knew something was wrong. Babies know. She's safe now. We all are. Are we Nathaniel? You shot a man? A rich, powerful man. That doesn't just go away. Then we'll face it when it comes. But right now on this train we're safe, and that's enough. Zoe nodded and leaned against his shoulder, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. And as the train carried them west away from Boston and its ghosts, Nathaniel held his wife and daughter and prayed they'd finally truly left the nightmare behind. But in his heart, he knew better. Men like Ashton didn't just disappear, and neither did the consequences of shooting them. They reached Montana 3 weeks later, traveling under false names, changing trains twice, always looking over their shoulders. Every stranger on the platform made Nathaniel's hand move toward his gun. Every knock on a hotel room door made Zoe flinch. But no one came. No police. No bounty hunters. No men in dark suits asking questions. The silence felt more ominous than pursuit would have. Maybe he didn't die, Zoe said one night as they huddled in another anonymous room. Maybe he survived and decided it wasn't worth chasing us. Men like Ashton don't let things go. Then why haven't they come? Nathaniel didn't have an answer. He just held Amelia while Zoe slept fitfully beside him, and he tried not to imagine the 100 different ways this could still go wrong. When they finally crossed into Montana territory, Zoe started crying. We're home, she said, her voice breaking. We're actually home. Not yet. Not until we're back at the ranch. They rode the final miles from Silverdale in silence, both of them exhausted, traumatized, changed by what had happened in Boston. The cabin appeared through the trees, solid and real, and exactly as they'd left it. And Nathaniel felt something in his chest finally unclench. Buck came running, barking with joy, and Tim Brennan stepped out of the barn. You're back. We were starting to worry. Then he saw their faces. What happened? Later, Nathaniel said. Right now, we just need to be home. That night, after they'd settled in after Amelia was fed and sleeping, Nathaniel and Zoe lay in their own bed and stared at the ceiling. Do you think it's really over? Zoe asked. I don't know. What if they tracked us here? What if? Then we deal with it. But Zoe, we can't spend our lives waiting for the axe to fall. We have to live. We have to try to be happy. I don't know if I remember how. He rolled onto his side, looked at her. Then we'll learn together. She turned her head, met his eyes. I keep seeing him fall. Ashton. I keep hearing the gunshot, and I keep thinking, what if you'd died instead? What if he'd gotten the gun and shot you, and I'd watched you? Don't go there. I can't help it. Nathaniel, you risked everything for me. Your life, your freedom, everything. And I don't know how to live with that. I don't know how to be worth that. You don't have to be worth it. You just have to be here. That's enough. She started crying, then the kind of deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere beyond words. Nathaniel pulled her into his arms and held her while she fell apart, and he realized she'd been holding this in since Boston. Holding it together for Amelia, for him, for survival. And now that they were home, now that they were safe, everything was finally crashing down. I'm so tired, she whispered against his chest. I'm so tired of being afraid. I know, sweetheart. I know. When does it end? When do we get to just be normal, just be a family without always looking over our shoulders? I don't know, but we'll get there, I promise. The next morning, Sheriff Blackwood rode out to the ranch. Nathaniel saw him coming and felt his stomach drop. This is it, he said to Zoe. They found out. But when Blackwood dismounted, his expression was puzzled, not accusatory. Mr. Reed, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. All right. Were you in Boston 3 weeks ago? Nathaniel's mind raced. Deny it. Admit it. What was the right play? Why do you ask? Because I got a telegram this morning. From the Boston police. Frederick Ashton, a wealthy businessman, was shot in his home during a robbery. He survived, but barely. Lost a kidney. And he claims the shooter was a man matching your description who broke in and abducted a woman named Zoe Caldwell. Nathaniel felt the ground tilt beneath him. He survived? So you were there. No point denying it now. Yes, but it wasn't a robbery, and I didn't abduct anyone. I rescued my wife. Blackwood sighed, took off his hat, rubbed his face. Tell me everything, and don't leave anything out. So Nathaniel told him. About the letter, the trap, Zoe being taken. About Catherine Walsh and the break-in and the fight in the hallway. About the gun going off and running and not knowing if Ashton was dead or alive. When he finished, Blackwood was quiet for a long time. That's quite a story. It's the truth. I believe you. But Nathaniel, the Boston police want you extradited. They have a warrant for your arrest. Attempted murder, breaking and entering kidnapping. Kidnapping? She's my wife. Not according to Massachusetts law. Apparently Ashton had some kind of legal claim on her through her uncle's will. That's insane. You know that's insane. I know, but the law doesn't always make sense. Blackwood put his hat back on. Here's the thing. That warrant, it's just a request. Montana Territory doesn't have to honor it. And as the sheriff of this county, I have discretion over what happens next. Nathaniel felt a flicker of hope. What are you saying? I'm saying I never got that telegram. As far as I'm concerned, you've been here all month. Working your ranch, minding your business, not causing any trouble. Understand? You do that. Risk your job. Nathaniel. I've known you for 8 years. You're a good man. You work hard, you help your neighbors, you've never caused a lick of trouble, and I've met your wife. I know what she went through with her uncle. If the law says a man can buy a woman and trap her with legal paperwork, then the law is wrong, and I'm not going to help enforce it. Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Just because I'm ignoring this doesn't mean it goes away. Ashton has money and connections. He might send private investigators, bounty hunters, men who don't care about jurisdictions or legal niceties. You need to be prepared for that. I will be. After Blackwood left, Nathaniel told Zoe what had happened. She listened, her face pale, her hands twisted together in her lap. He survived, she said, which means he can still come for us. Let him try. This is our home, our territory, and I'll be damned if I let some Boston bastard take you away again. Nathaniel, you can't fight men with that kind of money. He'll hire an army if he has to. Then I'll kill an army. He took her hands, made her look at him. I meant what I said in that hallway. I don't care what it takes. You're not going back. Not ever. She nodded, tears sliding down her face. I'm so sorry I brought this into your life. You didn't bring anything. Your uncle brought it. Ashton brought it. Not you. You're just trying to survive. And I'm trying to help you do that. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. You deserve everything good in this world. And I'm going to make sure you get it. Weeks passed. Then months. Fall turned to winter, and winter brought snow that buried the ranch under 3 feet of white. They stayed close to the cabin, went into town only when necessary, always watching, always waiting. But nothing happened. No investigators, no bounty hunters, no men asking questions. "Maybe he gave up," Zoe said one evening in January watching snow fall outside the window. Maybe. Or maybe he's planning something, waiting for the right moment. Maybe that too. She turned to look at him. "How do you live like this, with the constant uncertainty, the fear?" "I focus on what I can control, making sure we have firewood, keeping the cattle alive, taking care of you and Amelia. The rest." He shrugged. "The rest is just noise." Amelia chose that moment to start crying from her cradle. Zoe went to her, picked her up, began nursing her. The baby was 6 months old now, getting bigger, more aware. She'd started smiling, making sounds, reaching for things. "She doesn't know any of this is happening," Zoe said quietly. "She doesn't know her mother was almost stolen away, that her father shot a man to get her back. She just knows she's warm and fed and loved. That's all she needs to know. For now. But someday she'll ask questions. She'll want to know why we left Montana, why we went to Boston, what happened there. And we'll tell her. When she's old enough to understand. We'll tell her that bad men tried to hurt her mother and her father protected her. That's the simple version, the true version." Zoe looked down at Amelia, stroked her soft dark hair. "I want her to grow up strong, unafraid, nothing like I was. She will, because she has you, and you're the strongest person I've ever met. I don't feel strong. I feel broken. Broken things can heal. Given time and safety and love, they can become even stronger than they were before." She smiled at him, small, fragile, but genuine. "When did you become so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just stubborn. I refuse to let what happened to us destroy what we have." Spring came again, bringing warmth and green grass and the promise of new life. Zoe planted a garden twice the size of last year's, determined to make something grow. Nathaniel worked the ranch with renewed energy, building new fences, breaking young horses, planning for the future. And slowly, carefully, they began to heal. One afternoon in April, Tim Brennan rode over with news. "Thought you should know Catherine Walsh is in town, asking for you." Nathaniel felt his pulse quicken. "The lawyer?" "That's the one. She's staying at the hotel. Said she has information you need to hear." Nathaniel looked at Zoe. "Want to come with me?" "Someone needs to stay with Amelia." "I can watch her," Tim offered. "Margaret's with me. Between the two of us, we'll keep her safe." So Nathaniel and Zoe rode into Silverdale together, their first trip to town as a couple in months. They found Catherine Walsh in the hotel dining room, looking exactly as she had in Boston. Sharp, professional, dangerous. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed, thank you for coming." They sat across from her, tension crackling in the air. "What do you want?" Nathaniel asked. "To give you good news, actually. Frederick Ashton died 3 weeks ago." Silence. Complete, shocked silence. "Died how?" Zoe asked. "Complications from his wound. Infection set in. The doctors couldn't stop it. He suffered for months before he finally went." Catherine said it with no emotion, just stating facts. "His death has resolved several issues for you." "What kind of issues?" "Legal ones. The arrest warrant has been withdrawn. The estate is tied up in probate, and there's no one pushing to pursue charges against you. His children from previous marriages are more interested in fighting over his money than avenging their father. As far as the law is concerned, you're in the clear." Nathaniel felt something he hadn't felt in months: relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. "You're sure?" "Positive. I have documentation if you'd like to see it. Death certificate, notice of warrant, withdrawal, everything." Zoe reached for Nathaniel's hand under the table, squeezed hard. "There's one more thing," Catherine said. "Your uncle's estate, the real one, not the trap Ashton created, has finally been settled. You are entitled to $35,000. The house was sold, the debts were paid, and the remainder is yours if you want it." "I don't want his money." "It's not his money, it's yours. He may have been a monster, but the law says his assets pass to his next of kin. That's you. And frankly, Mrs. Reed, you earned it. You survived him. Take his money and use it to build a better life. That's the best revenge." Zoe was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "If I take it, I want to use it to help other women. Women like me, who are trapped, who are being abused, who need a way out." Catherine smiled, a real smile this time, not her usual sharp one. "I think that's a perfect use for it. And I'd be happy to help you set something up. A fund, maybe. Or a safe house. Something that matters. I'd like that." They talked details for another hour, then Catherine left, promising to send paperwork for Zoe to sign. Nathaniel and Zoe walked out of the hotel into the afternoon sun, and for the first time in a year, they weren't looking over their shoulders. "It's really over," Zoe said. "It's really over." She stopped in the middle of the street, turned to face him. "What do we do now?" "We live. We raise Amelia. We build the life we want. We stop running." Just like that. Just like that. She laughed, not the bitter laugh he'd heard too often, but a genuine laugh full of joy and relief and hope. And then she kissed him right there in the middle of Silverdale, not caring who saw. "I love you," she said. "I don't say it enough, but I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love you too, even when you're stubborn and insist on planting a garden 3 times too big. Especially then." They went back to the ranch to find Amelia being spoiled by Margaret Brennan, who'd apparently spent the afternoon teaching her to clap her hands. "Look what she can do," Margaret said proudly, and Amelia clapped, delighted with herself. Nathaniel felt his chest swell with so much love he thought it might burst. This was what mattered. Not the money, not the revenge, not even the closure. Just this. His wife smiling, his daughter clapping her chubby hands, his neighbors caring enough to help. This was home. This was family. This was everything. That evening, after Tim and Margaret had left after Amelia was asleep, Nathaniel and Zoe sat on the porch watching the sunset behind the mountains. "Tell me something," Zoe said. "When you saw me step off that stagecoach with a bruise on my face and a note in your hand, did you ever imagine this us everything we've been through?" "No. I imagined a quiet marriage. Someone to share meals with. Someone to ease the loneliness. I didn't imagine falling in love. I didn't imagine fighting for you. I didn't imagine—" He stopped, shook his head. "I didn't imagine any of this." "Are you glad that it happened this way?" He thought about it, about the fear, the pain, the near misses, about shooting a man, breaking the law, risking everything. And then he thought about Zoe, brave, fierce, beautiful Zoe, and their daughter sleeping inside, and the life they were building together. "Yes," he said. "I'm glad. Every single part of it. Because it gave me you. And that's worth everything." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I used to think I was broken beyond repair, that what my uncle did to me had destroyed something essential. But you showed me I was wrong. You showed me that broken things can heal, that I could be loved, that I deserved to be loved. You did that yourself. I just gave you a safe place to do it. No. You gave me more than that. You gave me a reason to heal, a reason to keep fighting, a reason to believe in good men after knowing so many bad ones." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars emerged. Inside, Amelia stirred and made a small sound, then settled back to sleep. Buck padded over and lay down at Nathaniel's feet. "What do you think she'll be like?" Zoe asked. "Amelia, when she grows up." "Strong like her mother. Kind like, well, also like her mother." Zoe smiled. "I hope she's brave. I hope she never knows fear the way I knew fear. I hope she grows up believing she can do anything, be anything, and no one can tell her otherwise. She will. We'll make sure of it. Will we tell her about Boston, about everything? Someday? When she's old enough to understand that sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules. That sometimes love means fighting. That sometimes survival requires courage most people never have to find. That's a lot to put on a child. It's the truth, and she deserves the truth. Just not yet. Let her be innocent a while longer. Agreed. A week later, they took Amelia into town for the first time since returning from Boston. People stopped to admire her, to congratulate them, to welcome them back properly. Mrs. Pritchard from the general store brought out a hand-knitted blanket. Pastor Morris blessed the baby with a prayer. Even Sheriff Blackwood stopped by to smile at her. "She's beautiful," he said. "Looks like her mother." "Thank God for that," Nathaniel said, and everyone laughed. It felt normal. It felt like community. It felt like belonging. That night, as they prepared for bed, Zoe said, "I think I want more." Nathaniel looked up. "More what?" "More children. Not right away. Amelia's still so little, but someday. I want this cabin full of noise and chaos and life. I want Amelia to have siblings. I want—" She stopped, looking almost shy. "I want a family, a real family, the kind I never had growing up." "Then that's what we'll have. As many children as you want. We'll add on to the cabin, buy more land, build something that lasts." "You mean that?" "Every word." She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his neck. "How did I get so lucky?" "Luck had nothing to do with it. You survived. You escaped. You chose a better life. That's not luck. That's courage. We both chose. You chose me too. Remember when I stepped off that stagecoach bruised and terrified? You could have sent me back. Could have said you wanted someone else. Someone easier. There is no one else. There never was. From the moment I read that note, she comes in need of safety more than marriage. I knew. I knew you were supposed to be here. With me. Even though it's been hard, even though we've been through hell. Especially because of that. Easy things don't mean as much. But what we have, what we've fought for, and protected and built together, that means everything. Summer came full and warm, bringing long days and short nights. The garden flourished under Zoe's care, yielding vegetables they shared with neighbors. The cattle thrived. Amelia grew chubby and happy, laughing at everything, fascinated by butterflies and birds and her own toes. And slowly, the nightmares faded. Zoe still woke sometimes, gasping, reaching for Nathaniel in the dark, but less often now. Less intense. The memories were losing their grip, becoming just memories instead of constant presence. One evening in August, nearly 2 years after Zoe had first arrived in Montana, they stood in the garden watching Amelia toddle after a butterfly. She was walking now, 13 months old, and fearless, chasing everything that moved. "She has no idea how much I love her," Zoe said quietly. "How much I'd do for her. How far I'd go to keep her safe. She will, someday, when she has children of her own. Will we tell her then about Boston, about what you did to save us?" "If she asks, if she needs to know. But Zoe, I don't want her to see me as a hero. I just want her to see me as her father, someone who loved her mother enough to do what was necessary." "That's what a hero is." "No. A hero is someone who makes grand gestures and accepts praise. I'm just a man who protected his family. There's a difference." Zoe turned to look at him. "You know what I realized. When I was in that house in Boston, trapped, terrified, not knowing if you'd come, I realized I'd rather die trying to escape than live without you. That's how much you mean to me. That's how much you changed my life. You changed mine too. Before you came, I was just going through the motions, existing but not living. You reminded me what it feels like to have a purpose, to matter to someone. You mattered to Mary. I did, but Mary's gone. And you're here. And I'm grateful for that every single day." Amelia fell down, looked surprised, then started crying. They both rushed to her, scooped her up, checked for injuries. Just a scrape on her palm. Nothing serious. But she cried like the world was ending until Nathaniel kissed it, and Zoe sang to her, and then she was laughing again, ready to chase the next butterfly. "That's what I want for her," Zoe said, watching her daughter toddle away. "I want her to fall and get back up. I want her to cry when she's hurt, and laugh when she's happy. I want her to feel everything fully and know she's safe to do it. That she has parents who will always be there to kiss the scrapes and sing the songs and catch her when she falls. She'll have that, I promise. I know, because we're giving her what we never had: safety, love, the freedom to just be a child." 3 years after that first letter arrived, 4 years after Zoe stepped off that stagecoach with a bruise on her face, 5 years after Nathaniel had resigned himself to dying alone, they stood on their porch watching the sunset with 2 children now. Amelia, 3 years old and talking non-stop, and Thomas, 6 months old, named after the father Nathaniel had never known but always wished for. "How did we get here?" Zoe asked, bouncing Thomas on her hip while Amelia played with Buck in the yard. "One day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time." "Your courage. Our courage. You survived your uncle. I protected you. You gave birth to our children. I built this life. We did it together. That's the only way it works." She leaned against him, tired but content. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. That I get to have this. That I'm allowed to be happy." "You're not just allowed. You've earned it. Every single moment of joy you've earned. So have you." They stood there as the sun sank lower and the sky turned gold and red and purple. Amelia ran over, demanding to be picked up. Nathaniel lifted her onto his shoulders, and she shrieked with delight. Thomas grabbed a fistful of Zoe's hair and yanked. She laughed and gently disentangled his fingers. This was their life now. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. Built on courage and love and the simple, profound truth that people deserve to be safe. That women are not property. That kindness matters more than cruelty. That family is what you make it, not what you're born into. The rancher who'd found a mail-order bride with a bruised face, and a note had told her, "You're not alone now." And he'd meant it. Through everything. The fear, the fighting, the near losses and desperate escapes, and moments when it seemed like cruelty would win, he'd meant it. She was never alone again. They built a life together. Not the life either of them expected, but the life they needed. A life where broken people could heal. Where courage was rewarded. Where love, real love, the kind that fights and protects and never gives up, could triumph over anything. And years later, when Amelia was grown and asked her mother about the scar on her father's knuckles or the way her mother sometimes woke with tears on her face, Zoe would tell her the truth. That sometimes the world is cruel. That sometimes bad men try to take what isn't theirs. That sometimes surviving means running, and sometimes it means standing and fighting. But most importantly, she would tell her daughter this: that she was loved from the moment she existed. That her parents had fought heaven and hell to keep her safe. That she came from courage and sacrifice, and 2 people who chose each other every single day, even when it was hard, even when it was dangerous, even when it would have been easier to walk away, and that she would never ever have to face the darkness alone. Because that's what family means. That's what love means. That's what home means. Not a place, but a promise. A promise that was made on a Montana porch in 1883, when a rancher looked at a bruised, terrified woman and said 5 words that changed both their lives forever. "You're not alone now." And he kept that promise. Every single day. For the rest of their lives.